What is going on, guys? Johnny on the track back with another video. It feels good to be back. It feels good to be making content again. I had to take a break after that heartbreak for Denny Hamlin. I was so upset. I was so upset. It made me rethink so much about this sport in general, the highs, the lows, where we can go from here. Yeah, I just needed a break away from thinking about NASCAR, tweeting about NASCAR, making content about NASCAR, just everything NASCAR needed to leave my mind, leave my brain, for a couple weeks, because that was just, yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was brutal to watch. It was upsetting to watch. And it kind of leans into where I'm at in making this video. So today I want to talk about, in my opinion, the three major changes that I think NASCAR needs to make this off season to one, strengthen the on-track product. I think all these changes will strengthen the on-track product. I think, drivers will race harder. It'll mean more. It'll change how they race, how they approach things on a weekly basis. That's number one. And number two, I think it's going to bring more fans into the sport and also back into the sport. So acquire new fans and, regrow the existing fan base that has left NASCAR because of negative changes that they've made. So this video isn't going to be too long, but I'm going to lay out the three kind of changes that I think NASCAR should make immediately in this offseason so we can be ready to go for 2026 and give you a little bit of reasons why on each. So I'm going to start with kind of the low-hanging fruit here, which is the current playoff format. We know it's getting changed. We know it needs to be changed. And my opinion would be that NASCAR needs to scrap anything playoff, truly playoff related. I think the two ways or the two places that NASCAR should and needs to go are one, a full season, points format, which would not be my number one option, quite frankly. I know that may be a hot take, but I am not in favor of a full season points championship format. I think it works in certain sports. I think it works in soccer, or football, as they call it. I'm obviously a soccer fan, a European football fan. I watch the Premier League, I watch the Bundesliga, I watch it all. So I think the reason that it works so well there is because there's a lot to play for. Obviously, you get, to be a champion, then you get Champions League, then you get different European qualification leagues. So you're still like a lot of teams are playing for that and also playing to not be relegated. So there's a lot to play for just rather than being a champion. So season accumulated points, in my opinion, work better there. In NASCAR, there's really only 4 to 5 guys that can actually win a full season points format. And, you know, as much as I say, well, get better for those other teams, the way that NASCAR is structured, there's no salary cap, obviously. Teams are what they are, the money they have, the resources that they have. It comes from, the stability in that team and the money that owner really wants to invest in. So I think it's hard to do that in NASCAR because in the end, you're going to get really a group of 2 to 3 teams and 4 to 6 drivers that could actually win this thing every year. So I lean into more of eliminating any form of playoff rounds. I know they were thinking about changing it to a championship round rather than a one championship race. I feel like that's what they're going to end up doing. That needs to go. I would scrap that. I'm done with that. I think we need to go back to the chase. I think the chase works well. It rewards consistency. It can reward running position by points, by finishes. It gives the kind of middle pack guys something to race for. Hey, you've got to be consistent. Top tens. That's what you're aiming for. No DNFs. And you can get close and close and close to qualify for the chase. And then when it comes time, you have that, whatever it is, 12, 14, 10 race final period throughout the season where, obviously maybe guys can start with awarded bonus points based on where they finished and all that jazz and accumulate points and have a good final run to the end of the season. And that's how we crown our champion. To me, you kind of balance points, stability, running well, no DNFs, consistency, winning. It brings it all together, but also brings that thrill that I think people want and NASCAR wants out of the playoffs to say, but you got to do it when it matters most, which is this, obviously qualifying to get in is something which is, kind of that stretch long season format. But you got to execute when it matters most, but it's not do or die at the last race. It's not do or die, to get into the championship four. It's no, you got to maintain consistency and run well through a final, whatever, 3 month period. That to me, I think NASCAR needs to revitalize the chase, adapt it a little bit where maybe we change some points throughout the season, and that's where we move forward with the chase. That's my opinion of the number one and first change I would say that NASCAR needs to make this offseason. And I know I mentioned it's low hanging fruit. Yeah, it is because NASCAR is essentially already, assessing how they want to move forward with their championship format and criteria. Okay, number two, I've mentioned this before, but stage breaks need to go. They need to go. I think you can still award stage points because I think stage points have. I don't think stages in general have done all negative. I think overall, awarding drivers and teams, based on running position early and throughout the duration of a race is good. I think that is something that if you go way back to NASCAR when it was a full season format, they didn't really do that. It was really about, finishing position and that sort of thing. Obviously, there were some bonuses in there, but, you know, I like having a guy run top three for the majority of the race and then maybe getting wrecked out late, still accumulating a lot of points. I think that's important. I think stages have been able to do that. But overall, stage breaks, stopping the race, re-racking them, going to the pits at a certain time. It's done so much negative to the strategy of the race, how crew chiefs, teams, drivers think about saving their stuff and utilizing strategy, what works. It's really a scripted outcome. Okay. You know that here we're stopping, and then this is how many laps are left. You can't let the race play out naturally because if it played out naturally, I know there's a million different, data sets and all this SMT, all that crap around NASCAR. I get it all, but I think it's going to provide more of a challenge to these crew chiefs to think about different ways of, oh, geez, like we got 100 laps left. Well, normally stage three, we'd only have 80 laps. What do we do? We knew what to do with the 80 laps in stage three. We split it up or we go, cut it into thirds or whatever you may do. Um, Natural cautions, it just adds more exhilaration. It adds more thoughts around the crew chiefs. It gives we should credit them more in that sense. And I think they would, provide a more pivotal part in the kind of weekend operations rather than just we've already paced out. We already know, stage three is going to come around. Here's what we're going to do. There's a caution around this time. Here's what we're going to do. You can't do that right now because stage breaks have just ruined the flow of racing. So I'm in favor of awarding stage points. I am. I think that's good. Maybe you could do it a third of the way through, and then the next third, and then the final third for your final point standings. I still like that. I think that's important. And again, I think it rewards good running throughout the race. If you bring a fast car, you should be rewarded for bringing a fast car. But in terms of breaks, pit stops, changing pit cycles, implementing, outcomes, not for it. Not for it. I think it needs to go. It won't, but I think that would drastically, immediately increase the on-track product. Immediately. I promise you that. So that's number two. And then number three for me, and this, I've kind of gone back and forth on this for years, and that's around NASCAR overtime. What does it do? What's the good around NASCAR overtime? And, one, it provides great finishes, like that Kansas overtime finish in the playoffs when Chase Elliott won. That was great. That was fun. Hamlin, Elliott, Blaney, I think was involved. Briscoe, maybe Larson. All those guys were involved in a great finish. That was good. That was fun. That was awesome. Short tracks provide some great overtime moments, a bump and run to get somebody out of the way. Great, awesome. But at the same time, there's so many negative outcomes. And I think the even if it's a scarce amount of negative outcomes, I said so many, but even if it's like a scarce amount, they're amplified because, you know, they're so big. We take the championship race, that late race caution. Um, that essentially decided a championship. That decided who won the championship. It was a played out event where Kyle Larson, no matter what Denny Hamlin did, Kyle Larson was going to have the upper edge on Denny Hamlin because, the race stopped and now we just go to a shootout. We go to a shootout and, whatever Denny Hamlin was going to do at that moment, Kyle Larson was going to do the exact opposite. That's what happened, and that's what won him the championship. I think do I think overtime in general, like everything about overtime should be scrapped? I think it would be better, but maybe there's a way or maybe there's a world where overtime stays on mile and a halfs or it stays on short tracks or whatever. But overall, I think overtime does more negative impacting the sport than it does positive. I think the moments where overtime screws a team, screws a driver, screws a team that brings a great car for the duration of the race, and those final two laps, he crashes out and that's the end of his day. I think that over amplifies, the good finishes that overtime creates or has created. You know, it's honestly, it's kind of tough off the top of my head to remember like, oh yeah, overtime did this and that was great. I mean, I mentioned the Kansas one. I'm not really sure other than that what else overtime recently has done. I can think of multiple off the top of my head where overtime has screwed a team or screwed a driver. One being the absolute biggest moment in the season in the championship do or die race. So to me, again, is there perhaps a better option overall where we could go where we don't just eliminate overtime? Maybe. Maybe that's for the experts to decide. But overall, I think overtime was cool when it was first implemented, but I think it's run its course and I think it needs to go. And NASCAR needs to figure out or resort back to, hey, we're just going to let this thing run out and not be so trigger happy with the flag, or hey, we're just going to finish a race under yellow and who's leading at that moment. You were deserving leader. Again, maybe there's going to be some aspects where there's 3 laps to go and a guy's, chasing closely and getting closer and closer and reeling that front driver in and there's a caution and then we award that the first place driver the win. And maybe there's going to be arguments in saying, hey, overtime would have allowed that other driver to have a chance, have a fair chance because that driver was breathing down the leader's neck. Maybe, but again, I think overall you're going to do more good for the sport by eliminating overtime than kind of revamping it however you may do. So that's to me, those are 3 changes that if right now they implement it and say, hey, 2026, we're going to eliminate overtime, we're going to eliminate stage breaks, and of course we have a revamped playoff format, in this case being the chase, everything immediately we'd have more eyes on the sport coming into 26. I think new fans could be acquired more to kind of just again with the excitement around these new changes. It would obviously help a lot of these kind of purists that have lost their love for the sport to bring them back a little bit. And I think the on-track product would also increase with all 3 of those changes. I think they would, even though we're not making any changes to the car, it doesn't matter. I think those changes would improve the product on the track. I know it would. So to me, Those are the changes that I would like to see, if possible, NASCAR make. I think they're only going to make one. It's going to be the playoff format. I think they're still going to go, they're just going to move forward with the championship round. That is my best guess, but I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What changes do you want to see from NASCAR? I'm just assuming we're going to have some funny ones in the comment section, but what are the changes you want to see? What are the changes you feel like could and should be implemented? And then what do you think is going to be that final playoff format going into 2026? Want to thank you guys for tuning back in. Appreciate you guys giving me a little time to have a bit of a hiatus away from this whole thing. But like I said, thanks for watching again. Give this video a like, it goes a long way from the channel. Want to know what you guys like, as I said. And I want to hear from you in the comment section below. And of course, please, please subscribe for more motorsports content. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.